So I'm really delighted to have with me Abby Hooper, or is it Hopper?
Hopper.
Hopper, of course. President and CEO of the Solar Energy Industries Association, and that's in the United States.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Um, so, Abby, I suppose many people around the world, at this COP here in Baku in Azerbaijan, COP29, are wondering, how the new US administration, which
Hmm.
isn't in yet but will arrive by spacecraft in January, will impact the transition to a clean economy and the continuing growth of renewables. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Oh, I have so many thoughts on that, but so it is. Um, I am very bullish. I think that the U.S. clean energy economy will continue to grow. I think that we will have challenges. I think we'll have some roadblocks, some speed bumps. But I think the market is in a much different place than it was in 2017, the
Mm,
last time President Trump took over, right?
mhm,
There's more deployment, more domestic manufacturing, and importantly, more political support than there
mm,
ever has been.
mhm, mhm,
And so I think that there will be continued growth. I think there
mhm,
will be continued domestic manufacturing and continued public support for clean energy.
mhm. I always remember last time that we all found out that the coal museum in Kentucky had solar powers on the roof,
It
and
does.
there was a kind of strange irony in that.
There's a beautiful irony in that. Similarly, I was a couple years ago. I went out to Colorado for a groundbreaking of a big solar facility that was fueling a steel making plant, and it was one of the oldest steel making plants. It created weapons and like parts for things in World War II,
Hmm.
and it was going off coal and onto solar.
Right.
And those kind of stories and those kind of examples are, for me as an advocate in the industry,
Yeah.
incredibly powerful, right?
Yeah.
Because it shows that it's sort of beyond politics. It is really
Yeah.
about how do we fuel our economy,
Yeah.
and customers want clean, reliable energy.
Exactly. I mean, I once was in a electric car flotilla from San Francisco to New York after something
Really?
called the Global Climate Action Summit, which
Yes.
took place in 2018. And we went to a small town, I think it was in Kansas, I can't remember.
Uh-huh.
But it had been destroyed like the year before by a tornado. A
Ah,
small town had been completely destroyed by a
yep.
tornado. And we asked the mayor and the pastor of the church, who were both on the right of politics,
Hmm.
you're rebuilding your town. But are you concerned about climate change? No, we don't believe in that. But we are installing solar power, and I think a wind turbine was going up and things like that. So
Right.
in the end, it
Right.
doesn't matter, just as long as the stuff's going in. And
Right.
it's interesting when you go through these stories.
Yes.
Um, there's been a talk about the Trump administration repealing the what was known as the Inflation Reduction Act, and what
Right.
is known as the Inflation Reduction Act. However, many renewable energy products that are getting support from this act are benefiting communities in traditionally conservative areas.
Yeah.
I even read in the Financial Times that in Georgia they have a huge battery storage project.
Huge.
Yeah. Um, do you think this bipartisan impact might help secure continued support for this act and the renewable energy policies in general?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And there is this correlation between districts and areas where their legislators did not vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, but yet
Mm-hmm.
are getting the benefit of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's somewhat ironic, but incredibly powerful as a political tool.
Mm-hmm.
So we have seen broad support among Republicans for some of the clean energy provisions of the
Mm-hmm.
IRA, including the solar storage, domestic manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
There was some support right before the election by
Mm-hmm.
a number of Republican members of Congress saying
Mm-hmm.
to their speaker, their leader, do not touch these provisions of the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
clean energy provisions, and that makes a difference, right? When we have Republicans who say, as you said, in Georgia, in New
Mm-hmm.
York, in Long
Mm-hmm.
Island, in Utah,
Mm-hmm.
in California, in Texas, in Florida, like places, some of those are sort of more traditional
Mm-hmm.
solar states, but others not so much, right? You
Mhm,
might not think
mhm,
of Georgia or
mhm,
Indiana
mhm,
or Wisconsin as big solar places.
mhm,
That's what really matters. So we've
mhm,
been tracking that really closely, making sure that
mhm,
elected officials know the benefit that's coming
mhm,
to their
mhm,
district. And I do think that that's when I think about the durability of the IRA, I think about that connection
mhm,
between where the investment's happening,
Hmm.
and who the elected representatives are.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a very, very valid point.
Yeah.
Um, so we said that many of the U.S. largest corporate giants like McDonald's, Amazon, and Google have invested heavily in solar.
Hmm.
Can the private sector play a role to ensure robust support for solar in the future, especially as artificial intelligence, as we know, drives future energy demands? And
Yeah.
I wouldn't just include the private sector; I'd also include cities and some states as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are two things happening in the United States right now, right? One is that for the first time in a very long time, we have increasing electricity demand.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in energy for a minute, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been flat to declining for
Mm-hmm.
year over year after year, and that presents its own set of challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It's changed dramatically in the past 2 years
Mm-hmm.
as there has been so much more artificial intelligence
Mm-hmm.
being developed, data centers being built.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at potentially a 30% increase in our demand in just a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And that changes the whole conversation, right? Because it's a conversation about abundance rather
Mm-hmm.
than scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
and about opportunity. And people are a little bit more willing to share part of the pie when the pie is
Mm-hmm.
increasing so dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's happening. And then, as you said, there are a lot of corporates that have made, some of them have made sustainability commitments, but a lot of them are doing this just out of economic
Mm-hmm.
decision making, right? They look at the sort of array of technologies and they think, rightly, I want the lowest cost form of energy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's solar and solar plus storage.
Mm-hmm.
And so those two things are creating a dynamic where I do think the private sector, and then you add in cities, states, counties, sort of other local forms of government, there is a really large coalition of the willing. And so I think that's one of the things that I've taken away from my time here at COP, is that while the sort of like the look of U.S. leadership may change. It may not be the federal government that is showing up in these international convenings and representing the leading role the U.S. must take. There will be U.S. private sector, U.S. government at other levels that are happy and ready and willing to stand in and continue to lead. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And of course, I mean, energy, wherever it comes from, is very important, but it's good if
Yeah.
it's clean, of course, absolutely. And I see also that there's a lot of projects happening in different places where people are combining waste heat with solar to actually harvest the waste heat from, say, data centers,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
also have solar as well. So you've got reliability in two different directions
Right.
for
Right.
your operations. I mean, it's becoming more sophisticated,
It's
how you
becoming
connect
so much
everything
more.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think it sort of goes to the evolution of the industry, right? And when I think about what customers want a solution, right? They want reliable, affordable, clean energy. And they're a bit agnostic of kind of how they got there, right? If it is a combination of solar plus waste heat, or solar plus pumped hydro, or offshore wind, supported by something else. And I think as companies, we're getting more sophisticated at providing solutions as opposed to technologies. And there's a whole kind of software element to all of this, and sort of matching load and demand. So I agree, and I think we're going to continue to see that evolution and that innovation. That is just, we get back to politics, which it's hard for me not to get back to politics. I think kind of that innovation is, that is attractive regardless of what your political affiliation is. And so as we continue to think about the innovation aspect of this energy transition, right? And again, see it as an opportunity for economic development and R&D and leadership, as opposed to sort of this conversation about scarcity and limited resources. I think we'll continue to find more political support.
And of course, in some places as well, with solar, obviously, you can be, in a sense, slightly off the grid as well. So you can expand your energy in a clean way and a cost-effective way without worrying about whether the grid's big enough to handle.
It's so true.
So
It's
there's
so true.
other benefits too.
Yes, yes.
Let's just wrap up here and say, is there a message you would share with both the US and the global audience that we have here, many eclectic audience we have,
Yeah.
but many people passionate about climate change, can you share about the resilience and the future of the American renewable energy sector, regardless of the policy shifts? I think you kind of said it, but
Yeah, no, I think it's worth repeating
yeah.
though, and that is, I think there's probably a lot of anxiety both if within the United States and around the world
Hmm.
about what the role of the United States will be moving forward, and
Hmm.
I can certainly share the private industry and the renewable energy sector will continue to
Hmm.
lead in this
Hmm.
area. We are very aligned with this
Hmm.
COP's goal of tripling
Hmm.
renewable energy
Hmm.
deployment by 2030.
Hmm.
60% of that needs to come from solar, 9% of that comes from the United States alone.
Hmm.
And we are ready, willing, and able to meet our goal in that
Hmm.
regard and
Hmm.
contribute to the world's addressing the climate
Okay.
crisis.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us, being on
Thank you
We
for
Do Have
having
Time
me.
here at COP29 in Baku. In fact, COP29 in Baku. There's been so many COPs, I kind of, stumble over the numbers now. And best of luck with your work. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for
All right.
having me.